Good evening. I'm going to show you how to diagnose and fix your LMTV fuel primer assembly. If your fuel line is completely empty, a properly working primer should be able to lift fuel from the fuel tank, and you should start hearing and feeling fuel going through the primer assembly after about 18 pumps. That's how this one's worked ever since I fixed it years ago. About 18 pumps to lift fuel with a completely empty fuel line. If yours isn't doing that, the system is most likely unable to pull enough vacuum to lift fuel up from the tank. Now, that could be caused by loose fittings, bad fuel line, or there could be a problem with the primer assembly itself. An easy way to check the primer assembly is to remove this fitting, seal over the end of the intake, and push the primer bulb in. The primer bulb stays in, doesn't come back out on its own. It's able to pull and hold a vacuum, so it should be able to lift fuel just fine. Until you release the seal, then the button will pop out. That should stay in there as long as I keep the inlet sealed. If it doesn't, if it starts to leak out on its own, or if it won't stay in at all while I'm holding a seal over it, there's something wrong with the primer assembly. So, because Chad said so, I am going to show you how to fix this. To do this job, you'll need a 3/4 inch wrench to remove the inlet and outlet fittings off of the filter. A 11/16 socket will release the hardware. I've already taken out one of the bolts. And you'll want to remove the fuel filter off the filter boss. Then I think the easiest way to do this, so you don't lose parts, because you could lose parts doing this if you're not careful, is to flip the whole assembly upside down. Okay, so with the assembly upside down, and you may need a Phillips screwdriver. It uses a Phillips head to remove the whole assembly. But you probably won't have to remove that completely anyway, because this little flapper valve swings up out of the way so you can reach both the seat and inspect the seal on the valve. What happens is, this is the inlet port. When the engine's running, it draws way more fuel than the passages and the primer assembly could pass with the engine running. So they put in this bypass flapper, so as soon as the engine starts up, suction from the lift pump will pull this open and pull through all the fuel that the lift pump needs to operate properly and move fuel. The way the primer works is down inside this gallery here. The fuel comes in this port, goes along this gallery, and right up above that gallery is the intake for the primer, and there's a little check valve up in there. So it draws fuel from the fuel gallery, and then it pumps it down and pumps it back into the fuel filter over here. As the filter fills up, the fuel goes through the filter, which would be screwed onto the center portion, up through the center of the filter, and out through this outlet gallery, out to the outlet port, which is out over here, out of sight of the camera. If this isn't sealing, this thing's just going to suck from right here and pump from right here, and it's never going to lift any fuel up the inlet line because it's never going to put any vacuum on this port. So usually what happens, what I had initially happen with mine was there was a big old long hair here, or a spider leg or something. It was a very thick hair, and what we need to do is you need to clean this valve seat off and clean off this rubber seal, the soft rubber seal, and make sure those lay flat so it can pull a vacuum. Once it's able to pull a vacuum, it will lift fuel in 18 pumps. So now that we've inspected that, let's flip it back over. And we'll hook up the fuel inlet line. Okay, got the fuel inlet line sealed. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. 16 pumps, and I have fuel dribbling out the bottom of the filter. So, that's a new record for me. Usually I call about 18 before I'm really calling good fuel, but it actually lifts fuel in 16 pumps. So, that's all there is to it. It is most definitely not rocket surgery. And it is just that easy to diagnose and repair. I oftentimes just go along and if I walk by the truck, I'll reach up in here and I'll push on this just to see how firm it is. In a perfect world, the whole fuel system should be full of fuel all the time. And you might push on it once, and then the second time it starts to get really firm because you're pushing hydraulically fuel against the fuel pressure regulator where the fuel comes out of the head on the other end of the system. That's the way it should work. So this thing should just get firm within a pump or two every time you touch it. That also tells you it's working right. If it doesn't, if you pump on it and it doesn't get firm, you're not moving any fuel, so you probably should fix this, because someday you might run out of fuel and you might really want to have it there. If you ran out of fuel, like I demonstrated in the other video, 18 pumps to get fuel, about another 20 to 30 to completely refill the fuel gallery in the head, and that should get you back running just as easy it was in that video. Anyway, I hope this is of some assistance to somebody.